Hi everyone, welcome back to the football show with Neeraj and Yash. Today we're going to be reviewing the very exciting group stage of the UEFA Euro 2020 that just got completed. Uh, we'll start with your most favorite match of the stage, Neeraj. Over to you.
Hi Yash. So my favorite game was the only game which went into penalty shootout. So we had eight amazing games, but this was the only one that did go into a penalty shootout. And a shootout brings a completely different feeling when you watch it, especially as a neutral when you're not supporting a team. And it was not just a normal game; it was a game between France and Switzerland. France going into the tournament as favorites. Switzerland not really fancy too much, and the way the Swiss fought against France that day was damn impressive. Really, uh, they were leading. They had a great start in the first half. They took the lead, went in at 1-0, got a penalty very early in the second half, and missed that. So you had the chance to go up 2-0, and in the matter of 15 minutes, they conceded 3 goals against the the world champions French, and Pogba with that curler. I thought game is dead and buried at 70, 75 minutes. And after 80 minutes, the way they came back to pull it to 3-3, and it was just a fantastic game, really, going into the penalty shootouts and whatever happened at the end.
It was pretty incredible. I mean, France played like world champions for a grand total of 15 minutes, where they scored those 3 goals. But apart from that, I think they were all over the place and they were there for the taking. And credit to the Swiss, they never gave up. They put bodies on the line. They hauled themselves back into the match. And even though there was a hit against the crossbar late on in extra time, the Swiss always looked like going to penalties, and they put away all 5 of their penalties extremely clinically. No, beating Hugo Lloris is not like beating David De Gea. It's a different proposition altogether. But yeah, I mean, very disappointing tournament for Mbappe. What do you think?
He just didn't look up for this tournament at all, which was a huge surprise. A lot of us had him as one of the favorites to win the player of the tournament, or maybe even get the golden ball or golden boot. But just never fired throughout the tournament. I didn't see the best of him. He was almost at that Neymar side you don't want to see, falling to the turf, appealing unnecessarily, shooting from here and there, wide, rash shots. And we saw a lot of it in this game as well. There was a brief 10-15 minute period where France were good, and Mbappe was also good. He assisted a goal. He was in that link up play as well. But apart from that disappointing tournament, and that penalty just summed it up. It was a very poor penalty, almost in the middle.
Yeah, it was pretty much on the cards, I think. But yeah, I mean, that was a great game of football. Another good game was the one that happened just before it, I felt. Spain versus Croatia. And we were talking and we were saying this is going to be a dull game, boring game. 8 goals in the match. And 8 goals in a non-penalty shootout. So just...
No penalties also.
Yeah, exactly. And there was a shocking own goal at the beginning. I mean, that's going to be the record for an own goal from 50 yards. You saw Patrick Schick hit one in from 50 yards on the other side. And now we've seen one go in from 40, 45 yards on the same side. No, but credit to Spain. I mean, they picked themselves up after that goal. I don't think Croatia had a shot in anger before that, and suddenly they found themselves 1-0 up. So very strange situation to be in. But yeah, I mean, how underrated is Sarabia? I mean, he's just flown under our radar, but he's managed to come up with 4 goal contributions in the last 3 games. And even though go on.
Yeah, I mean, the whole team is just clicking, right? We were talking after 2 games. We were like, this team is just not functioning. They're not getting goals. Even at the start of the tournament, we weren't sure with a team where Morata was leading the line. To be honest, I've never fancied Morata as a goal scorer. He's a very honest and hardworking player, but I don't really fancy him as that prime goal scorer. but he's done decently. Not a good start to the tournament, but they've got 10 goals in the last 2 games. Would you imagine it? Like players from all over the pitch contributing. Sarabia has flown under the radar. Danny Olmo, you told me at the start of the tournament, he's been very impressive. Ferran Torres has actually been one of the players who's lit up the tournament for me.
Yeah.
And being a City player, I don't like it, but he's actually been really, really good.
And yeah, I mean, even Morata came up with a cracking goal. In fact, it was a game-settling goal at 3-3 deadlock, and he just smashes it into the roof of the net. Just shows, I mean, it's all coming together for
all that he went through. I think he really needs that goal.
Yeah, it was pretty shameful. I mean, you can sometimes we forget that these players are human beings also. You kind of yeah. But yeah, moving on actually. Some of the games from the day which you liked, which didn't happen on that day probably. Let's just exclude that day because that was just a mad day. Yeah.
That's probably one of the best days of football that I've ever seen. 2 games back to back, cracking games. Anyway, moving on from that, one game that I thought wouldn't be too much of a challenge. I thought Netherlands would kind of not steamroll, but at least whip Czech Republic away. I ended up picking up 4 players in my fantasy team, thinking that Netherlands would do a great job. I had a forward, a midfielder, a defender, and a keeper, and it all just went wrong for me. Netherlands were so poor against Czech Republic. I didn't see that coming for sure. That was a huge surprise for me.
Yeah, I mean, I made the same error. I also have 4 players, but it's a lesson for me to never underestimate Frank de Boer. I mean, you can give him the best squad in the world, and he will play like it is Stoke trying to save themselves from relegation. Because the man knows nothing else. But yeah, I mean, they not just Frank de Boer, but even De Ligt, to an extent, has to take the blame. He could have just gone full Phil Jones, if you ask me. Go with your head. Do whatever you want. Just don't put your hand there. It's inexcusable. And yeah, I mean, it's inexperience showing. And yeah, he completely sold his team down the river there. So yeah, I mean, it's not as much a Czech Republic win as much as the Netherlands throwing it away. And after looking good throughout the tournament, that's the sad thing.
That's a huge surprise, right? Just the day after these 2 games we mentioned earlier, we saw 2 unfancy teams come back from 3-1 down with 10 minutes left. And Netherlands didn't do that. I was actually expecting Netherlands to fight until that second goal went in. And there was really no fight all through the game. The main man who had to stand up didn't on the night. So pretty disappointing for a Netherlands supporter. This would have been for sure.
True. Moving on actually to a game where we both had opposite predictions. And I don't know what it's with you and the England voodoo. When you say it's coming home, it doesn't seem to come home. When you say it's not coming home, it seems to be coming home. Explain the relationship you have with England.
Because no, it is definitely coming home. It is definitely coming home. You see the draw that they have in front of them. They've gone past the most. No, but they had Germany as the most difficult team in their draw. And things are all falling in their favor, right? Netherlands got eliminated from their side of the draw. It's definitely coming home. It is going to stay in Wembley only.
Yeah, I mean, but credit to England, credit to their defense. They haven't let in a single goal this season. Maguire and Stones as a centre-back pairing is not like the most error-free pairing I've ever seen. But it seems to work for Southgate when he puts Phillips and Rice in front of them and frustrates the hell out of opposition teams until the 70th minute. And then he just throws on Jack Grealish. And Grealish has 20 minutes to work his magic, and everyone's happy at the end of it all. So yeah, I mean, it's like an unoiled machine creaking in and getting the job done. I mean, that's the only analogy I can think of. So yeah.
It's such a talented squad. They have so many people who can play up front, and he plays 5 defenders and 2 holding midfielders. It's just annoying me that the likes of Sancho, Grealish, Rashford, Mount, Foden, Saka, all of these guys are on the bench. And okay, Saka did play, but you have so many attacking talents, and all of these guys are on the bench. You have 5 defenders and 2 in the front of them, and yet it's working. It worked against Germany perfectly. How much credit would you give to Southgate for this, or is it just luck?
So I don't know what to say actually. I mean, is Southgate a genius, or is he just there for the memes? I don't know. But just like trying to focus on individual player performances as well. I mean, the 5 at the back doesn't look like a 5 at the back because Luke Shaw is suddenly playing in midfield, winning the ball, create at the heart of both of England's goals. So I mean, and I definitely expected this from Luke Shaw because he's had a brilliant season at Manchester United as well. And it's just he's just carrying over his form into the World Cup. So he's got a very talented group of players, Southgate, and it's redemption for him in a way after missing the penalty at Euro '96 against Germany and getting knocked out to the entire 24-year circle where he's come back and knocked a German team out of the Euros at home. That too must be very special for him.
Reminds me of that Chak De India movie, right, where Kabir Khan missed that penalty and penalty stroke and came back, took the girls to the win. It's kind of that. So I'm telling you, bro, it's definitely coming home. It's England who are going to win this Euro. You see, their draw is it's like a red carpet for them to Wembley and the final. So it's England. But when you look at the teams that we've discussed and have been on the losing side, look at Germany, look at France, Netherlands, pretty disappointing. All these 3 teams have really disappointed us, right? It's pretty sad.
Yeah, even Portugal for that matter.
Exactly. I was coming to that.
In Belgium versus Portugal. So, what do you think of that game? Should Portugal have gotten on the score sheet at least, given their range of attacking talents that they have?
You fancied Portugal, right? I always thought Belgium would do enough. They got a cracker of a goal from Hazard, not the Eden Hazard that we know. It was his brother Thorgan Hazard. And okay, De Bruyne went off in the second half. I think that was one of the main reasons why they were so defensive. They didn't have that confidence in them because they didn't know if they would be able to retain the ball enough. Eden Hazard was also not fully fit. Lukaku was trying his best, but the game was there for Portugal to take. They had all the men up front. They had Felix, they had Ronaldo, they had Jota, they had Bernardo Silva, Bruno Fernandes there. 5 of these guys cannot score 1 goal. It's very hard to understand.
It's shameful actually. And I mean, Fernandes is playing his 70th game of the season, not an excuse. But it's clearly showing that, he's playing his 70th game. He's not being played in his preferred position. But what's the excuse for someone like a Bernardo Silva or say Ronaldo also? I mean, Ronaldo's literally carried them through up until this point. So, I mean, we can cut him a little bit of slack. But yeah, maybe a Silva, Jota, even Fernandes for that matter. I mean, you guys are world-class talents. And you can't beat a backline that has, of course, that backline is pretty good. But I expected better. I expected at least for them to get on the score sheet.
The only way I actually saw Belgium winning was if it was a high-scoring game, 3-2. Because, like you mentioned, look at the backline. They have Vermaelen, Vertonghen, and Alderweireld. All 3 of them well into their 30s. You couldn't score against a defense that had 3 men in their 30s. You had Meunier on the right who doesn't defend. You had Thorgan Hazard on the left, who's again an attacking-minded player. It's not like it was a defensive masterclass like we see the Italians. Against this team, this attacking talent couldn't score 1 goal to even take it into extra time. I don't think they deserve to move forward in the tournament. And they didn't really look good throughout the tournament, right? All through the group stages, they just squeaked through at the end.
Yeah, they weren't convincing at all. Moving actually, and it's good that you bring up the Italians because I was going to question you about that in a minute. We both predicted easy wins for Italy, but it turned out to be pretty close at the end. Austria surprised us a little bit there.
Yeah. It was a professional performance, I think, from Italy. It was not like they went gung-ho. We thought they might do that because they've been playing really well. It was a very professional performance. They knew that they had to get the goals, and I think they did just about enough. But I think they were really pushed to the corner by Austria. Austria gave they gave a good account of themselves at the end.
Yeah, true. And yeah, I mean, with the Italians, the thing is, I don't think they have to get into top gear at all. Like, I think they're just hitting 75% of their abilities and just like going through. But although it did take extra time for them and a Chiesa goal to actually get them through, but yeah, I mean, didn't look like Italy were troubled much. And the next game against Belgium is going to be a cracker. I mean, but that's of course for another time. I think we've missed out on one game, which was England versus Ukraine. Sorry, England are going to play Ukraine, but Sweden versus Ukraine.
Yeah,
what are your thoughts on that?
Sweden versus Ukraine, the last game in the group stage. I actually expected Sweden to do very well because they were actually very impressive in the group stages. So I thought Sweden would do enough to beat Ukraine, but it was a very surprising performance. I actually felt Sweden deserved to go through because Forsberg was on another level. He scored a goal and had 2 shots hitting the crossbar as well. I think they deserved to go through in the normal time itself, but when it went to extra time, that's where the game turned. Red card for Danielson, down to 10 men. They made all sorts of attacking changes, and they were left exposed in the last minute of the game. They conceded to Ukraine, and credit to Ukraine for that.
That's actually heartbreaking. But I mean, if you leave Victor Lindelof out there, you are setting yourself up for trouble. I mean, as a United fan, I've seen enough of Victor Lindelof to know that he doesn't win anything in the air. And yet another player that I have to grudgingly be impressed with is Zinchenko. He's been ghosting all tournament, but when it comes to the knockout stages, he's just arrived. He scored a brilliant goal. He found himself in space regularly to torment the Swedes. And the quality of the cross, so deep into extra time. When half the players' legs are gone, body's tired, he whips in that cross, and the Swedes concede. So some Zinchenko magic on that.
Real class on the day, right? The goal also was actually very, very classy. It was almost close to the corner flag, and he curled it in. So that was very classy as well. So that's what you need. You need big players to stand up on those big nights. Though Zinchenko is not a huge player in the world, but for his team, he's the big player, and he stood up on the big night. Unlike so many of the fancy teams who have been knocked out where the big players didn't stand up on the night. And talking about big player, Gareth Bale and Wales. What happened there? You were actually telling me that guys like Gareth Bale, Aaron Ramsey, Dan James would perform, and Denmark were on that emotional journey, and that beautiful journey is continuing forward as well now.
I'm actually happy for Denmark. I mean, I can't grudge them. Wales had their moment in the last Euros where they beat Belgium. But this seems like it's Denmark's tournament, going ahead. But yeah, I mean, Wales really weren't at it at all. And they were just completely opened up towards the end. You had Mæhle from the Danish defense, waltzing into the penalty area, cutting it back onto his left foot and knocking it into the goal. So, I mean, mildly embarrassing for Wales. I think they want to forget this performance in a hurry. But yeah, I mean, haven't seen a more one-sided game than that one in the US. Wales just offered nothing.
Mildly, no, bro. The way Mæhle played, I couldn't understand if he was a left back, right back, centre back. He was all over the pitch. He's scoring from the right wing. He's ghosting on the left flank. It was very hard to understand what his actual position was. Kasper Dolberg coming into the tournament, scoring 2 goals. They were out. They didn't have Yusuf Paulsen. They didn't have Eriksson, of course. Despite not having 2 of their stalwarts, And Wales being full strength, it's pretty embarrassing for Wales, I think, at the end of the day.
Yeah. And I think Denmark are playing with that extra bit of zing because they're playing for Christian Eriksen, and you know, they're giving him a fantastic tribute. I mean, it's credit to this Danish team, and I'm really excited to see what they have in store for us.
True.
So that was actually the review of the UEFA Euro round of 16. And it's been a great tournament so far, and I'm sure Neeraj, you've had a lot of fun watching and looking forward to the games ahead.
Yeah, really looking forward to the quarterfinals now. A lot of fancy teams are not in the tournament anymore, so it's there for anybody to take, right? I think it's definitely going to be interesting. So thank you for tuning into this episode. Stay tuned to our preview of the quarterfinals that will come out tomorrow. Thank you.